Hey, welcome back to Strength in Numbers podcast, episode 4. Originally, we were going to be talking about the Arnold Australia, but like all things, the virus has canceled that and a lot of stuff's on hold. Instead we'll be talking about the current strongman landscape and what this means for not just the Arnold Australia, but World's Ultimate Strongman, Arnold Africa, and World's Strongest Man, which is also coming up in about 11 weeks. Joining me is Matt, and for the first time, Markus. And do you two like to introduce yourselves?
You go ahead.
Okay.
You're the guest.
So, well, I'm Markus, also known as GingerBeast. I'm 3 times SA champion and 2 times Africa champion in my weight division. And yeah, I've been doing strongman for just over 2.5 years now.
All right, cool. My name is Matthew. Instagram Clayton Critchley. I haven't been doing strongman long, but I have background in a lot of different sports, so I like all stuff.
Yep. So, as I mentioned earlier, Arnold Australia was just canceled. I know a lot of people are trying to get that quick win immediately after the Arnold. Who do you? I guess first we'll talk about who do you think this helps, and who do you think this hurts?
I think this helps
for the Arnold Australia.
I think this helps Martins Lisi. I don't think he was going to be able to go into that competition at like anything above 70% at best. And I don't think he could have won that at 70%. At 80%, he could have won. 90%, he could have won. 100%, absolutely. Not 70. Not against
And I agree.
Rano Heinle, who wants that win way more because he barely lost it.
Yeah, I was thinking Maxine might have come out and taken this one. He's been doing really good, and if you looked at him in Santa Monica, he would be coming into this a little bit more fresher than Martins and a couple other people who were just coming off of the Arnold, Ohio. So I think this probably affects Maxine's chances more than anyone else's because this was going to be a really good chance for him to take that first.
I think the competition list would decide how well Maxine placed far more than anything else. What the actual events were would determine how good Maxine's chances of winning. Without knowing what the events are, I wouldn't put odds on him winning because it could be like I deadlift for reps against all those people, he would be low. And then some more static events that weren't strictly overhead pressing, he might fall behind on. But I wouldn't. And the thing is, the only person I would back, if everybody's 100%, which nobody ever is, but the only person in that contest list that I would back 100% would be Martins, because he's the most well-rounded strongman on that list.
Well, yeah, because looking at the list, the people I would say that would be above Maxine in normal conditions, you have Martins Leacius, Jerry Pritchett, you have JF Caron. All three of them, I feel like would have.
Heinle.
Yeah, and except for Rono, the other three, got beat up pretty bad in Ohio. I'm pretty sure because how the Arnold works, they have to relocate this to later in the year. So I feel like especially for Jerry,
honestly,
Martins as well, this is going to be better for them to qualify.
The only reason Martins didn't win an earlier Arnold is because of the fact that he was injured and he had that nerve issue going on. If he would have stopped competing a little bit before that and given himself time to get healthy, he could have won one of the Arnolds before that pretty easily. Or at least qualified by placing high enough. But he backed himself into a corner. But he also, at 100%, Martins can get an invite to Arnold's next year without a problem. He doesn't need to worry about that if he can compete more than once. But he doesn't necessarily want to do that. Because he also, with the new strongman circuits, there's a lot more competitions going.
But I also think that with someone like Jerry Pritchett as well, for Arnold's being postponed, it's going to help him to recover more as well because in Ohio with that something that slipped in his back during the deadlifts, I think for that injury to just recover more before Arnold's Australia actually takes place, I think it's going to help him also a lot more.
Well,
But I agree.
I agree with that.
With about Martin Schlesers as well. That nerve damage, if he can get over that nerve damage, if that can heal 100%, he's going to be unstoppable.
And like I think it's difficult because I think what strongman are going to have to start doing is not competing at as many shows every year. And so even if you have, let's say, right now, I think there's 6 qualifiers. There's more. There's like 10 qualifiers next year for one of the contests. Let's say you have 10 qualifiers for one of the big contests. Most of these strongmen are competing in 6 to 7 of those contests. I think they need to be competing in 3 at most, especially if they have a good chance of winning.
Well, it's the point system, and I mean, it's sort of if you win, you don't have to compete.
Well, that's not necessarily true. Kiliaskowski kept competing because he needed the money, even though he had already qualified. Yeah. And that, I think, is hopefully something we can get over. Give the strongman enough money so they don't have to compete for a paycheck. They're competing for the qualification. And then I think we have a better field of healthier athletes.
So, what's your take on recovery time? Because you competed in some pretty big competitions. So,
go ahead.
With the Arnold being set to be 11 days after Ohio, as someone who's kind of been in competitions at that like really heavy weights, is that even a feasible recovery time, or how would someone manage a competition that close back to back?
Personally, I think that competitions that close to each other, there's going to be a lot of issues as well with recovery and so on. But I think it all depends on the rehab that you have after the competition, moving into the next competition, because everything plays a role to your progress into your next competition. And if you are sitting with an injury or even a little tweak or something, and you can't figure out how to get that right, or how to be 100% on the next competition, it's going to affect you negatively. Doesn't matter what you do.
Mentally, I think, is a big part of that too.
Yes, mentally, it's going to mess around with you because you will know about that injury. You will think about that injury, and will hope it won't worsen during a competition or even during the prep for the next competition. So, I would actually say that take things easy. Do your recovery and make sure that you're 100% before moving into the next competition.
And I think that can be really...
Well, I mean, if you look at someone like Belsack, he took him and Jerry Pritchett both suffered injuries in Ohio, but they were in every single qualifier. They had to get the points. But I mean, that's just
Belsack's injury is a consistent injury.
Yeah, but 8 Arnold qualifiers couldn't have helped his hip.
No, they didn't. And I think the other thing is that he was saying this is probably his last year competing as a pro strongman because he's going to take a really long time to get that hip repaired because it's going to be a full replacement because he lost all cartilage in that hip socket. And so it's most likely a full replacement, and it's really, really hard to compete in strongman with a hip replacement. I've heard of hip replacements actually breaking the bones they're supposed to be anchored in from overstress. So he may not ever be able to compete at the same level.
Even at 100%, he's always going to compete at, let's say, 60% of what he's actually competing at.
Well, and he's only 27. So even if this injury takes him 4
Belsack
years,
is older than that.
Belsack?
Yeah, Belsack is older than that.
How old is he?
He's been competing for a long time. He's
he just started when he was really young.
Yeah, but yeah, he's like over 10-time Slovenia's strongest man.
I feel like he's got. I feel like we'll see him again. I don't know if he'll be back to the same level he's currently at, but we'll
We
definitely
might see him in
again.
like Strongman Champions League or something, or Strongman Masters. I know Kivilikov is going to compete as a Masters this year in some of those, and those are going to be interesting because Big Z's coming back, Terry Holland's looking really strong, and there's some really strong guys who aren't at their peaks, but they're still crazy strong. Well, I'd like to see them compete a little bit more.
Yeah. So next thing up is the next show that's not happening now is World's Ultimate Strongman, which I really like World's Ultimate Strongman because it's kind of different from the pace. The other big thing that everyone was talking about was Thor's 501. He was setting to peak it at World's Ultimate Strongman.
Yes. I think he's still in the plan to pull 501 on the day that was going to be. That's what it seems like his plan is. And I think if what was the date for the World's Ultimate Strongman in Bahrain? May 13th or something?
I think it was May 13th or something. But even with that, he also said that he's struggling to breathe with his new deadlift suit.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to take, it might be good for him to get more time with that deadlift suit before he actually has to pull some crazy numbers. Because he said he hasn't trained with it. He hasn't trained with it for a while because they've been doing the elephant bar deadlift.
Yes.
Because they got tired of the hype of are you going to break Eddie's record, because it was going to take a while.
And
it was going to take a couple of years for people to actually catch up to that record.
And everybody expects him to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's, like he said, that he's still going to train to beat the 501.
Yes.
But it all depends on when World Ultimate Strongman be.
Did you guys see Ivan Makarov almost pulling 501?
I saw that. Just hitched above the knee, dropped.
Just above. Amazing. If he could have gotten above his knees, he probably could have hitched it and got it all the way up. But
I want to see that. Yeah, but he did it, what, a 12-inch or something? 540 kilogram.
Yep.
Deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with it was really. That guy is strong. He's going to be in the log lift championships too, which makes me happy because I think he's much stronger than like a certain person I'm not going to mention.
So how hard is it to peak? When you're like he was kind of planning to break the 501 3 days ago. You have your own deadlift records. So what is that process like peaking, and then how hard would it be to then miss your peak and have to start that process back again?
Well, currently I'm actually in a peaking process to challenge for a record for myself, and to be able to peak at the correct time, there's a lot of calculation that you have to consider into that, because you have to work into a few different phases. Like phase 1, you have to set a target. Phase 2, you have to set a target. And working to peak at a competition actually it's very stressful, because can you do it? Is the conditions right? Everything plays a role on the day. So if you don't feel 100% to actually pull that lift that you wanted to pull, it's going to be difficult. But like when I pulled the Africa deadlift record for the under 80 kilogram division, it was just a spur of the moment decision. Let's pull this weight, and by luck I got it. But since then I started training to specifically focus more on my deadlift, just to get it up and break my own 280 weight. And moving into that, you get your strong, I'll say that you get a strong phase, and maybe the next phase you take a little bit of a dip. So then you have to adjust your whole workout system again. And you have to adjust the whole time. That's unfortunately one of the things. So to peak on a competition, basically just a lot of calculations and hope for the best. So yeah, there's a lot of things to consider during peaking phase.
From what I understand, as far as training perspectives, peaking is more of a powerlifting motif and methodology than strongman. But I know it's very, very heavily adapted within strongman.
Especially if you go for a max weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that just because powerlifting is just that's how you get max weight is by peaking, and they just know that from years and years of doing powerlifting? And
Well, it's just
But
you're
just-
always breaking your body down, and you got taking that, hitting it really hard, and then taking that week or two to deload and have everything build back up. Adds
Well,
a
you
lot
also
of
have
extra
to-
weight.
You have to train heavy, so you have to break down your muscle fibers so that your muscles can grow, get stronger. And that's basic knowledge for strength building.
yeah,
And in powerlifting, I believe it's a little bit different than you do it in strongman. There's different techniques that you use, different methods that you follow.
Mhm.
A lot of powerlifters believe in the 5x5, 3x3, 3x1.
Mhm.
And compare that to strongman training.
Strongman is closer to 5x5, I think.
Versus
Just all the
5x5.
way.
Basically, but if you want to start peaking for a specific weight,
Mhm.
what I've seen, especially with a lot of the athletes here in South Africa, we, like for instance with the log press, we train the log basically every week.
Mhm.
We don't always do our 5x5 reps or
Yeah.
stuff like that. We basically work up to a heavy single and then leave it.
Mhm.
The next week we work up to that same heavy single and try to surpass it. So I just think it's basically your own personal uh, perspective that you have to follow. Some coaches actually believe you can do it that way. Other coaches say no, stick with your reps.
Mhm.
And the heavier weight you can rep, the heavier single you can have.
Yeah. And I think with all programming, it's so dependent on the person, and it's so dependent on where you are in your training cycle, your training history, your body's reaction to certain types of training. And I think the most common training methodology seems to be if something's not working, change it until it does work.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
know.
all trial and error. Trial and
Mhm.
error.
Yep, trial and
That's
error.
all it
Just
is.
and it's all stuff you have to do with a coach, with by yourself. Just all trial and error stuff all the way through.
Yeah,
And
I
not
know
just
Eddie's.
physically, but mentally as well.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no,
No, you're
you go.
good.
Yeah, so I know Eddie's mantra was he would just keep doing 6 go ups until he couldn't do 6 because he would almost
Mhm.
never do a heavy single. And then you have other people like I know Brian, he works up to heavy singles a lot, which is kind of a big variation. I always thought that was interesting. Eddie most of the time would just get to where he couldn't do 6, and then he goes on to the next exercise. Works his way
Well,
up
if
until
you
he can no
look
longer
at
do 6, and he goes
Eddie's-
on to the next one.
If you look at Eddie's whole like training methodology, there's a lot of just basic throw it at the wall and see if it sticks stuff in there. And Brian is very, very dialed in on every single aspect of his entire body. Like he knows exactly every single thing that he's weak on. He knows all of his strengths. He is going to have a more dialed in program because that's the kind of person he is. And that's the way he responds best. Because also he's been doing it longer than Eddie had been. Eddie had been training for a long time, but Brian's been doing it much longer. Especially heavy stuff like strongman.
I agree. I actually started to implement try to combine way that Brian Shaw moves into heavy singles after I do like Eddie's move up to 6 until you can't do 6 anymore. So I work up to a max 6 rep, and then I start doing triples and doubles and singles to a heavy single. And I actually found that that works a lot better for me.
Yeah.
So you
But
just
what works for me won't work for someone else, let's say.
so
it's-
you just do 6 reps, keep upping the weight, and then once you can only get 6, then you drop to 3, and or do you just go from 6 to 1?
I do up until 6 reps until I can't do 6 reps anymore. Then drop down to maybe a 4 rep, 3 rep, 2 rep, 1 rep.
Just slowly
So-
going down. until you get to that 1 rep.
Yes.
I mean, 'cause, yeah, there's a lot to be said for training that way because we're always training heavy singles. There's a lot of competitions where it's 4 reps. And if you never train above, X amount of reps, when you need 13 of some sort of deadlift, even if you're the stronger guy, you may not have the stamina to get that many times.
Yeah,
that
but I also
depends
think
on the competition, the
Mhm.
events on the competition as well. If you have to train for a max weight, then train for a max weight. If you have to train for, let's say, deadlift for reps in a competition, you train for deadlift for reps. So you won't train a max deadlift if you have an event that has a deadlift for reps. So
Mhm.
you have to shift your whole training, your training method into something else. So rather focus more on the volume and not on the max power.
Now, here's a question: with someone like Jerry, who was probably planning, or like maybe Martins, who would have been in like Australia, possibly Africa, as well as Worlds and World's Ultimate Strongman, which would have given them like 9 days between each competition. How do you deal with that? Because you're lining up so many in such a short time that you're gonna have 4 reps max, 4 reps max. How would you deal with that leading into such a block like that when you necessarily are gonna have to be doing both just several days apart?
I think in something like that,
I'm
I
gonna
don't
say
know.
what I saw Martins doing. What I saw
Yes.
Martins doing was training for the Ohio. And just whatever strength he got for the Ohio, he's just gonna try and carry that into the next event. That's what it seems like he was gonna try and do. Just get as strong as possible before Arnold's Ohio, and then just whatever strength he has, that's what he has. Because the Arnold, I think, was the most important out of all those events.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the one he put the most effort into.
Also,
But also,
the way that you
I
can
w-
train as well.
go ahead.
Sorry, the way that you can train as well is even if you do a 3 rep max, 4 rep max, and just try to increase the weight every week, but still knowing that if I can increase the weight every week with, let's say, a 3 rep, a 2 rep max even, and still do a second day during the week of constant volume on that same exercise, I think you can also work your strength and your volume on the same time. I don't know, it works with some people, but not with everybody. Everybody's bodies are different, so I have seen it work before, but it's very seldom that you see someone that actually excel in exercise like that, and
Training for both.
training for both and actually performing at 100% in both types of situations.
Hmm. I was going to say another aspect of it is that we still don't know what the events were going to be for the Arnolds in Australia, and we don't know what the events are for World's Strongest Man.
Did they
So
release
we
the
do
events
know
for
some
Arnold
of.
Africa, even though it has been delayed?
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say continuing. World's Strongest Man hasn't released any events at all, and we know that Bahrain has a max deadlift. So you go into a block, you have 2 events that have max deadlifts, and 2 events you have no idea what they are. I think you train for max deadlift. That's my guess. How would you approach that if you had 2 competitions, you had no idea what the events are going to be, and 2 where you did know exactly what the events were going to be?
What we normally do is if we don't know what the events are for a competition as of yet, we just train basically everything that we can train that we think might be in the competition and train a few extra events as well. And normally we will get our events for a big competition about a month or so before a competition actually starts. So then we have that month just to focus on the events and work on our weak spots. But for competitions that we know what the events are and uncertain about other events, it's also difficult to actually train for that. But like I said, just keep an open mind for what you want to train and train as much as you can, basically, as much events as you can.
Makes
Just
sense.
to just to keep yourself
The
well,
technique
what's the word?
fresh, I think, because I feel like
Yeah.
the technique is important for strongman events because there's so many different kinds of events.
Yeah.
And each event does not take a lot of technique, but mastering all the techniques for all the events is actually really hard.
No, it is.
Yeah, that's one thing, because in powerlifting you got 3 lifts. So if you're doing something like 5-3-1 in powerlifting and you're only getting like, on some days only 3, you're doing sets of 3, then you're still getting enough overall volume. But when you got like 30 different potential strongman competition events that you can train, it's really hard to put in enough reps on any particular item.
Well, and it's also from what I've experienced and from what I've been told, strongman events like they exhaust your core so much that it's so hard to do so many of them in a day. It's almost hard to do a ton of strongman events because they all seem to be back. They all want you to use your back for like 4 different things and all at the same day.
Well, not just that. You breathe and brace through every rep. You breathe and brace through every event. And if you exert your diaphragm, actually, because your diaphragm, its main focus, main thing for the diaphragm is that you work on your respiratory system. So if you exhaust your respiratory system, you exhaust your diaphragm. So you get tired more easily, especially in a strongman competition where everything is heavy.
So heavy.
You will be spent by the end of the first competition. Now, if you have to do 2-3 competitions week after week, by the third competition, the chances for injury is so big, and you will be spent by that competition. So, also, like I said earlier, it all depends on what type of recovery you go through, and if you're at 100% or not. If you can do it, then why not? If you can't do it, then yeah, it's going to be difficult for you.
I'm very, very new to barbell weightlifting, and so I still am experimenting. I have no idea what works, and the whole thing is noob gains. Everything is probably going to work. Just whatever I do, and that actually kind of paralyzes me sometimes because I don't know what to do. Because I'm like, I could do anything, but I don't want to do these things. But I probably should do some of them. But I don't have to do all of them. But I also know a bunch of stuff I have to do, but I don't want to do some of that.
Yeah.
I struggle with that. I know.
What I'll sort of do is usually for a warm up, because there's so many different implements at our gym for strongman, is I'll just put really light weight and try to do just sets of 20 just to practice form. And that's my warm up for the actual workout. Like, because there's so much technique to anything if you break it down enough to any particular level. It's just almost overwhelming. Like, you could spend years perfecting just the Atlas stones.
Yeah, and people do. And there's room in strongman for perfecting multiple implements because you can kind of work different parts of the body if you time it well. If you just kind of time what parts of the body you're using. So,
like if you look at Ohio, Rob, he spent a lot of his focus in just the log press and doing stones, and not so much time practicing the farmers, which I think kind of got to him a little bit.
Well, also he said before grip is one of his weakest points. He's admitted that openly.
Yeah, his hand size isn't like the rest of the giants he's competing with, which really doesn't help when you can't use tackier straps.
Yeah, but the farmers is kind of normal barbell size usually. A little bit bigger than normal barbell size, but not that much. It's not fat grips usually. And I think a lot of it is just he doesn't believe in his grip. I think he has a strong enough grip. I just think that he's just not confident with it yet. I think he could do it. And I think that like that frame, he can deadlift that much. He can lift that up. And I think his grip is strong enough. He think he gets in his head a lot, especially with grip stuff. And I think grip can get in your head really bad.
I don't think that he's gonna let that happen again. So I'd see him probably putting in a lot of time on that frame carry.
Well, I mean, look how well he did in the other events. Like he kind of slowly built up like his strongman profile. He's like just slowly building up all of his weak points. He just has a decent amount of them. But I respect the hell out of him for how hard he tries, and
So
he really does get shit done, just kind of slowly.
as
Oh,
far
he's
as
very committed into his
Yep.
training as well.
Mm-hmm.
as far as your strength and weaknesses, since you competed on those kinds of stages, what would you say is the things that you feel like you have really good technique and form, and what are things that when you see it on a competition, unless you're like, I haven't put in the time, like the reps and stuff on that one, that's gonna suck.
Well, things that I believe that my form is good in, the deadlift, obviously. I hold the under 80 kilogram Africa deadlift record. If I get a chance to break it, then chance will come, and I believe my technique is not at 100%, but there's always room to grow.
Mm-hmm.
When I started the Strongman, my coach actually told me, he forbade me to actually press a log. And we had a 220-pound log at the gym, which was the lightest one we had. So
Oh,
for me,
dang. That's
Yeah.
heavy.
so for the first month, he said, just deadlift it and sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I had to do for 1 month. That's all I could do. And for the next 2 months, he told me, deadlift, go sit with it, roll it up, put it down.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I could press that by the end of the second month. And he just said, no, you're going to curl that thing until you get sick of curling a log.
Mm-hmm.
And month 4, he said, okay, you're ready to press the log. And it was easy as hell. So just by training the log that way, and also just being implemented into Strongman, and starting with the log, basically. Even on the weight, like 120 kilograms where I am now, my curl feels perfect. On the videos, I can also see my curl is perfect. It's just the pressing is still a bit shaky.
Yeah, go ahead.
Atlas Stones was always one of my weakest events. And at my second Africa Strongest Man, we had to do a 120 kilogram Atlas Stone for reps. And that same coach, I drowned out the crowd while doing that. And all I heard was his voice in the background shouting, do this, do this, do this. And every rep looked like the previous rep. I got 7 reps in 90 seconds. And since then, I just excelled in the Atlas Stone. I hardly train Atlas Stones, but that's for a whole different reason. But I believe that my technique and form in the Atlas Stone is almost perfect
Now,
for me.
did you do something similar in Atlas Stones where you would just lap it first, and train that before going from lap to pedestal, or did you train that as like one motion from the beginning?
Actually, always hated the Atlas Stone, so I never lapped it and put it down or anything. I just went for lap, pick up, and put it down. So, or throw it over the bar. So, my technique always sucked really bad until that competition, when I actually listened to him shouting advice to me throughout the crowd, and I did every rep perfectly. Like, I can't remember if I had tape on my arm or not. I think I had tape on my arm, but the other competitors that competed with me in the same division, they were bruised on their biceps, like it was pink and purple and yellow, and blood was running off. I just had one little blue spot on each bicep. So I believe my form was so good that I actually didn't injure my skin that much. And even with last year's Africa's Strongest Man, the tacky that I used, it was too strong for the tape that I had. So every time I tried to apply the tacky onto the tape, it pulled off the tape. So I had to go bare skin with the tacky on, and almost every rep again looked the same as the previous one. And I got 6 reps in 60 seconds on a 120 kilogram stone.
And
I
this
want
is
to
over
say
bar?
I want to say 2 things because one thing I saw about in my amateur competition I competed in last weekend,
Yes.
the
How was
amateurs
that, by the way?
log clean was horrendous. if it was because it was a log clean and then press away, so you could clean it once and then press it multiple times. If any of those guys had to clean it more than once, they would have broken something.
Yeah,
Because they were barbell cleaning a log, like literally landing it on their chest with the full weight of it.
Oh yes.
that's
And
something I've
like,
noticed as well in amateur competitions is the log is what makes you look like people are going to hurt themselves. Because I mean, a lot of other stuff you can sort of simulate, but the log you have to practice on the log.
well,
You can't
even
really
that, like,
simulate
it's
that.
people way too often just overpower a log. They're just strong in the overhead press, and they overpower it more than they use technique, and that's where you get hurt in strong.
Yeah, it's because they don't practice it. They don't get used to the putting it on your body and rolling it up. So they lap it and then they try to bicep curl it up into the clean position, and then they blow a bicep.
Well, yeah,
It's
or
the
they
bicep curl
just
that
do
they
the
have to do.
barbell clean where they actually like try. That was the scariest thing I saw somebody do. I was like, that's not.
Yep. And that's why I noticed that like the competition in last October was there was a lot of dudes that are really strong but never practiced with a log, and were having trouble, a lot of trouble, because they couldn't figure out how to do from lap to clean because they haven't practiced with it.
Well, I failed my reps on the log because I got it clean perfectly. I lost no energy on the clean, and I had the clean absolutely perfectly. Because I'd even practiced, because they were using bumper plates, and I'd even practiced with bumper plates because it throws the weight a little bit further behind you than just the regular iron plates do sometimes. And so I practiced with that. And so I got it up to my chest, but it was the different weight and the bigger log just put it further out in front of me, and I just couldn't press it. I got it up, and I got it up to about here, and then it was out in front of me, and I couldn't do it. And then, yeah.
And before the podcast, were you talking about you're also going to try to go for your weight class record on log, or what? Or was it a different press?
For the log press, I want to go for the Africa log press record. But yeah, I'm not sure when we will have a max log again competition, or how soon we will have a max log. But when we do, I want to try and break it with at least 5 kilograms.
What's the current
And
record?
120 kilograms for
Okay.
the under 80 kilogram weight division.
So you're targeting 125?
I'm targeting 125. But now the funny thing is, the record holder at the moment holds the record for the under 80 kilogram and under 90 kilogram Africa log press record.
Okay. Interesting.
So on
Are
the,
you gonna try and beat it under 80 kilo and get both of them as well?
I'll try to break the under 80 kilo, and then if everything goes well, a little bit further on, then I'll aim for the under 90 kilo.
No, I
But
thought it was one record. He has two separate records, one in each weight class. Oh, okay.
Yes.
And
So-
so this would be
He has
after your
the-
deadlift, though, right? Because you want to stay in the 180
Yes.
until you get the. And you're going for deadlift world under 80?
I want to. That's a plan. So I'm currently for max weight. I'm currently training for max deadlift to just get an insane weight. And if we have a max deadlift at a competition, I want to be able to attempt the world record. Which is currently sitting on the 321 kilogram. So I actually think that if I'm comfortable on the weight I am now to do more than the record, then at that point I'll drop down for under 80 kilogram and attempt the world record.
Oh, so you go up to 190 first, and then you would cut back down to the 80 to go for the deadlift. You're not planning on staying under 80 until you get the deadlift.
Basically. But for Arnold's now, Arnold's Africa, whenever we are going to have it or not, my plan was to drop for the under 80 kilogram division and just challenge for the title. I've competed, well, this would have been my third year to compete in Arnold's Africa, and so far in the previous two competitions I had, I came second in both of them. So it's a goal that I have to, well, that I want to have the Arnold Africa title as well. So I believe that I can get it in the under 80 kilogram division, and if I can get it there, then next year maybe for under 90s.
Now, for you personally, does having this extra time to prep for the Arnold benefit you, or is this more of an annoyance and you wish you just could have taken care of it? In your personal training, how's this?
It's a little bit of an annoyance because my cycle, my whole training cycle is worked out to actually peak on Arnold's, and now it's postponed, and we don't know any further information about that until later this week. So,
Are the vibes you're getting it's like postponed for like a few weeks, or the vibes you're getting it's going to be postponed to like July, June, or is it just you have no idea what's going on at this point?
at the moment, we have no idea. We just got a message actually tonight that said Arnold's Africa is postponed, and they will get hold of the. Well, they will have meetings with the health officials and everyone, and then by the end of the week, they will let us know what's going to happen.
Now,
Maybe
how spread is the situation in Africa right now? Because I've seen a lot on the news about in Europe and in the U.S., but I haven't heard much at all about what's going on in Africa.
South Africa, it's not actually that bad yet, but everybody's taking a lot of precaution just in case it gets worse than it is at the moment.
Precaution is the best way to prevent this from getting worse. If everybody is precautious.
And it keeps the gyms empty.
Yes. And
So you
that's
have more
the
room to train.
That's the decision I'm trying to make right now.
I have to do something. I'll be right back.
That's the decision I'm trying to figure out right now is do I want to keep going to the gym or just trying to figure out at home? But because I know there's a lot of stuff you can just do at home. Like, was it Kelskowski was talking about how he trained for the Will of Pain was just putting a bunch of weight in the back of his pickup truck and pushing it. Like, there's no reason I can't push my SUV up and down the hill if I want to avoid the gym. So no excuses even if you can't go to the gym.
And I have an axle, an Apollon's axle here at home. I have an Atlas stone at home, and I have a log. I have farmer suitcases here at home. I have my car that I can actually pull around. So staying at home and training some events to an extent it has its benefits, but also it's just some of the events. There's other stuff that we still want to train, like we have a yoke carry at Arnold's if it's still on. That I have to train at the gym. We have other events as well that we have to train at the gym as well. So if you don't have the equipment at home for that, then basically going to be a bit of a hassle.
Now, is your gym a private invite-only gym, or is it like just a public, anyone can kind of be a member-style gym?
For the normal gym I gym at, it's a Virgin Active. It's a contracted gym, so private gym basically. Commercial, but you have to have a contracted gym there. Where I train my strongman training, we are actually training in a CrossFit environment where we had an agreement with the owner of the CrossFit shack. So we just throw all our equipment in that place, and we just all come together twice a week and we train strongman. We do ask a small fee from the people that actually train with us, but that fee is actually so little. It's just basically for maintenance and so on that we give to the CrossFit shack itself just to.
So you help run the strongman side of this gym then?
Not me personally, no, but we help a little bit around the place and so on. So if we have enough money to, let's say, put up something that we can hang the stones on or put the stones on as a platform, then we will collect the money from everyone for a few months, and then we'll build the platforms to put the stones on. There's quite a few things that we basically contributed to the gym itself to not only benefit the strongmen in the gym, but also to benefit the CrossFitters that is currently at the gym as well.
Now, I guess the last one is Worlds is coming up in 11 weeks. It looked like Brian was going to have kind of an advantage because he sat out of Ohio and he's been resting, training, recovering. So the scenario would have been Thor goes hard at Ohio. Thor goes for 501 at World's Ultimate Strongman, and then has 11 weeks to completely rest, recover, and train the events for World's Strongest Man. And you look at a very similar schedule for Kilikowski and Martins and a lot of the other guys. So how do you think that if, let's just say that World still happens on the planned date in 11 weeks, how do you think this affects Brian's chances opposed to if the schedule would have ran uninterrupted?
Okay, I'd like to ask you guys before, have you seen Brian's latest YouTube video?
I did not finish it.
I am really excited about Brian at World's Strongest Man this year. He seems like he is more fired up than ever. And I think regardless of what happens, it's going to be the best World's Strongest Man because I think everybody's going to be healthy.
I agree. But not only, he doesn't only seem a lot more fired up, he actually seems like a lot stronger Brian Shaw that we've seen in the past. I think because I think it pissed him off to not be able to compete in Ohio, but also it gives him that little bit of an edge to rest longer, and his prep for Worlds is longer.
Yeah, and I think that's what he needed for a really. I think that's why he didn't do as well this year as he could have, because he didn't let himself rest. But we've talked about that before. And that's my other biggest thing is that Brian's next number one priority before he was trying to focus on making a career. He's had a lot of that settled now. He's good. He wants to be the best strongman ever.
And I think we may also be underestimating how much that show took out of them. I mean, Eddie was retired, but then if you look at Oberst, really didn't show up too big anywhere since that show. Brian, during the course of that show, wasn't placing very high.
Hold on. Oberst is going to be at the World's Log Lift Championship. He has not been showing up much because he's been training for that.
Yep, and I can't wait. I'm really excited to see him back. But
like Best showed up, actually, in Oberst got to World's Strongest Man after being on the show with Brian, because he was around people stronger than him.
I feel like the show overall probably definitely took a detriment on those guys. Like, even Nick didn't do that good in Masters that he should have done.
I mean, and I think it doesn't matter. They're all making great money now. They're all doing really, really well financially now. All of
the
them.
money's great, but as far as competition, I think it affected a lot of their rank, a lot of like what they would have been able to accomplish.
Brian has said that, absolutely. Yeah. The other guys, I actually think it made Nick Best a little bit stronger, and I think it made Oberst a little bit stronger. Because Oberst is strong, but I think Eddie's stronger than him, even not competition level Eddie, in a few places. One or two places.
Well, here's what's always confusing about Eddie. Eddie's like, I've retired from Strongman, and then 3 weeks later, here's a video of me doing this retarded weight for a retarded amount of reps. Like, he says he's retired, but he's still maintaining almost the same schedule, like workout and intensity that he was. He's just eating less calories than he was. But he's still going pretty hard.
I mean, he's still 380 pounds. 370, I think, on a bad day. But Eddie Hall, if you notice, he's also trying to spread his influence as much as possible. He's trying to get Strongman, like, kind of incorporated with whatever aspect or strength sport that he can possibly touch.
I feel like Eddie and Martins at the best are this. Eddie's even better because he doesn't have to compete anymore, and he won Worlds, got the title. But the whole thing about spreading Strongman is you need to get personalities outside of Strongman that, like, make it entertaining for people who don't care about Strongman, and then it brings them into the world. So I came in through
another sport. I love Juji and Tom, but I have another kind of analogy for this. So I used to compete in disc golf, frisbee golf, whatever. We have professional leagues, and people get paid money. One of our top pros got paid $1 million for a 4-year contract, which was the highest player contract ever. And it's for like major league sports. That's nothing. That's a third-string offensive lineman who is not actually playing any games. But now this year we have a new guy came into the sport. His name is Brody Smith, and he's a YouTube legend. And ever since he started playing like actual disc golf professionally, the sport has blown up. From a lot of his influence, and a lot of his influence is just getting people who weren't interested in disc golf into it. And so I think that there's always room for that in any sport. And I think Eddie doing that is good, but it also feels a little bit sellouty at times because he's just everywhere.
Well, no, I think having a representative from the sport do things outside the sport are the best way to bring people in.
Yeah,
'Cause,
I do believe that. I do believe that is Eddie's is just to get more people into strongman.
So what got you into? What was the thing that got you into strongman or into
I
powerlifting initially?
Go ahead, Ginger.
Well, basically, I actually started doing bodybuilding and wanted to do classic physique.
Hmm.
And one of my friends held a little local powerlifting competition, so he said I have to enter because I'm his friend. I have to support him, bullied into it, and I started training for that for a few months, and I actually noticed that I'm getting stronger very quickly. So competed at that competition, which was just it's not something I count as a competition, but it's my first basically introduction into strength sport. And I thought, wow, that this is actually nice. I'm getting stronger, I look good, and I feel good. And that's when I just switched over to basically I want to be stronger than looking good. And continued training for powerlifting for about 3 months after that little introduction into strength. And three of South Africa's strongest men pulled me into strongman and said, listen, come train with us one day. If you don't like it, then fine. If you like what we do, then welcome. And I haven't looked back since. And that's been just over 2.5 years now.
Now you've been pretty successful in strongman. Do you feel like you would have been as successful in bodybuilding or powerlifting, or do you think genetically strongman was just like the perfect fit for you if you hit it with the same determination and like effort that you put into strongman?
I think strongman would have always been something I would have wanted to go into if I knew about it earlier. Because I actually never knew about strongman until I met these guys and they pulled me into strongman. But for um, excelling in bodybuilding itself, I don't think I would have done this great. That I don't know. I don't think because everybody is doing bodybuilding. It's one of the biggest sports in the world. Everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, and especially in South Africa, finding sponsors is very difficult. Doesn't matter what sport you are doing, and especially for strongman. Strongman sponsorship is basically zero to none. There's no one that sponsors a strongman. And if someone gets a sponsor if a strongman gets a sponsor from someone, it's usually the guys that either start strongman now and basically 5-6 months along the line you never hear from them again. But the people that actually hold titles and excel in the sport and everything, we struggle to actually find someone that sponsors us. And I don't know.
And it's come a long way from where it was. I feel like it's strong, and especially if you look at like the Google Trends, it's gonna probably get more and more easy for because right now if you look at like SBD and Rogue, they used to only support like the highest level. And you can kind of see it trickling down further, and especially as more and more and more fans build.
And SBD as well, actually.
Well,
Yeah.
and then you have Separate Strength as well, who sponsors a ton of strongman, and they're a UK company. And I think that strongman has so much room to grow because of the world view on health and keeping healthy. And I think going to the gym is pretty much people are starting to realize it's the only way to live the longest.
I think
you have to go to the gym if you want to live longer.
I think the biggest problem with strongman's outreach, and something I wish we would sort of change, is everything's focused on the biggest guys, the open class super heavyweights, and you see someone who's 6'7", and like you see like how massive they are, and it's just out of reach.
Well, it's not just that; like the weights that they're moving, you're like, it seems implausible.
But
when
you look at all the
talk
other
about a
weight
guy
classes,
improving his deadlift from 1,000 pounds to 1,100 pounds, that's equally far for me. It's equally like the same distance for me, basically. So it's kind of I want to see more lightweight and more amateur strongman stuff.
Yeah, I wish that aren't like for example in the Arnold Ohio that they would promote some of the other weight classes just a lot more than they currently do.
Well, next year, specifically, the pro strong women are going to do the exact same events as the strong men.
Oh wow.
And that's going to be really interesting because I think Pro Strong Woman is actually really competitive, and they are
Yeah.
really close together as far as their actual strength and abilities go. And I like watching them.
And if you,
And
it sort of has this kind of the same problem. They really need to support the lower weight class because one of the most exciting people in strong women is Rhiannon Lovelace, and she's not in the
and
super
she
heavyweight
is
class.
stupid. She is
Uh,
way stronger
think-
than some of the girls in heavyweight. Like,
I think if the coverage on a lot of the
stronger
lighter,
than some of the guys. So.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, 600 over 600 pound deadlift, I think.
and
recently.
then and if you switch over to powerlifting, you look at some of these women who are pulling in some of the lighter weight classes, like 550 pounds and stuff. Steffi Cohen, yeah. I feel like if they covered some of the lighter weight classes, it seemed more approachable.
Well,
And I
if
think
you hold on, I want to add one thing to that specific about Rhiannon Lovelace. If Rhiannon Lovelace pulls that 600 pounds without straps, that's an IPF world record, regardless of weight class regardless of gender in her weight class.
It's true.
Because how do you find
Yes.
in the competitions you go to? How do you find like the crowd reacts to like the super heavyweights versus the under 80 or the under 90 that you've been in?
I think it all depends on what
How hard you
the
try.
MC also do. Yeah, that, and also we have one of the best. I believe he's one of the best MCs that Strongman can provide. He is a bodybuilder as well. He calls himself Mr. Superman.
That's cool.
He is a bodybuilder. He MCs for bodybuilding shows as well. But if there's a big competition for us, then he's there. And he treats every athlete, doesn't matter if it's your first competition or if you are doing your best pro show ever, he's treating you the same on an equal level. And he
I
gets the
love
crowd
that
so
about Strongman.
yes, and he gets the crowd so involved with the weakest person up until the biggest, strongest person. Everybody reacts precisely the same. But also, there are crowds that has their favorites, so
Yeah.
they will cheer more for one person than the other person, and we get that in every sport.
Well, I'd like to. I have a really good example of that. So, going up to my competition, I knew I probably wasn't going to be able to pull anything on the deadlift. It was way outside of anything I had pulled, and I was kind of angry about it. So, I let out the loudest possible yell I could right before I did my rep, and just at the top of my lungs, and it got my adrenaline pumping. It really helped a lot. Like, I was ready to fucking pull that weight, and the crowd was so excited. Like, everybody started clapping and cheering and everything, and then I didn't pull it, but they kept that enthusiasm a little bit through the next few people. So it made me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think the coverage seems like World's Strongest Man. The fact that it comes out in England like 3 months after, and then in America like 8 months after.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you could, if you're an actual fan of the sport, you know who the winner was way before it ever airs.
And then you watch something like the Arnold, you can watch it live. I feel like, and there's a couple places that are making real good strides into bringing strongman content and treating it like a proper sport in broadcasting. And they seem to apply
better
that.
Commentators.
We do.
We do. And then they seem to apply that to some of the lighter weight class. I think a lot more people get interested. Because if you, like Brian Asrew on YouTube, he even talks about, like, he was into kind of like powerlifting and strength, but he viewed all strongmen as like just giant, like, fat dudes. And then then his friend introduced him, he saw the lighter weight classes, and then his friend passed away, and then in memorial for him. Yep, he went to go do
by
a
the
strongman
way,
competition.
sleep
Fell in love with
apnea
it.
is a real thing among strongmen that you need to be aware of. But go ahead.
But yeah, I think because if you look like your weight class, everyone's ripped. Like in the lighter weight classes, you get a lot more definition. I think that's also a lot more appealing to people in bodybuilding and outside, even in CrossFit, when they can get the perspective of the different weight classes. Not everyone has to be 6'5" and 400 pounds.
Well, I think that the shows, the middleweight men, the under 230 men, are some of the most fun to watch at the really, really high levels because they are they are so strong for their weight. Like
And the
some of them
speed.
are not far off of the pro strongman in some of their numbers.
I find it more interesting is the speed because a lot
Yeah.
of the medley events and like sleds and also for rep events, you see a lot more kind of a speed out of the lighter weight classes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like I said, Nano as well, that Yuan Else, who was the sixth strongest man in the world 2 years back, he
Yep.
pulled a 405 kilogram deadlift for Africa deadlift record. And we have a 105 athlete, which is the 230-pound athlete. At SA's last year, he pulled a 395 kilogram deadlift, which is basically 10 kilograms below an open class guy that weighs around 60 kilograms more than him.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the people, Anthony Furman had like an 800-pound
Anthony Furman,
deadlift.
yes.
Yeah, that's who it was. But yeah,
No,
he's really good deadlifter for his
no, he
weight
is
class,
definitely.
and now he's trying to move up to heavyweights, and he injured himself a little bit, but he still pulls crazy deadlift numbers. He just can't quite get the log up in that like the mid 400s. That's so heavy. Like,
No, I
I'm
agree.
interested to see. So you know
Have
a
we heard?
lot. Hold on, I want to ask him a question. So you know a lot
Yep.
more of the kind of not pro strongmen. Who from South Africa should we be watching out for pro strongmen?
Pro strongman, I think for someone that can compete at a world's level, Chris van der Linde is currently Africa's strongest man in the open class. Keelan Mills is currently also SA's strongest man for open class. And these guys are basically, if you think about if a normal person think about a strong man, it's this big, tall, fat guy. They are. And their strength is basically just insane. And also Tristan O'Brien. Tristan O'Brien, also one of the strongest people in South Africa. Etienne Smith, he actually he runs the TNT. Which is a supplement brand in South Africa as well. He was, I think, in the early 2000s, he competed in two-man strongman shows, and he was SA strongest man, I think, about 7 times or something. But he basically he's starting to make a comeback into the sport as a master, and even now his strength is just insane. But for the lower classes, hopefully me, and also for under 90 kilogram athletes, Terence Villiers, he competed at the Static Monsters last year as well, at the World Static Monsters World Championship, and he won the under 90 division. And 105s, I believe, you have to look at David Becerra note. He actually was at a Worlds twice for 105. Blake Lawrence, who currently holds the Africa deadlift record for under 105, which is the guy that pulled the 395 kilogram deadlift last year at SAS. He's suffering from it. Well, he's recovering from a bicep tear, which affected me quite a bit. But as far as the videos I've seen now, he's starting to make a big comeback now. So yeah,
So
it's quite a few athletes. It's quite a few athletes that excel in the sport and who is actually passionate about growing into the sport. But the rest of the people, there's a lot of people that also just do strongman and say, "I'm a strongman," just to say that I'm a strongman. And
well, we had this discussion in one of my discords. It's if you claim to be a strongman, powerlifter, or bodybuilder, that should mean you compete in strongman, powerlifting, or bodybuilding. Otherwise, you just train like a powerlifter, strongman, or bodybuilder.
But not just
that's like, go ahead.
Not just compete, but also you have to be good in the sport.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. Not only like we had an athlete, actually, I'm not going to name, but he competed in a novice division basically as much as he could. And
Ah,
he's actually flipping strong. He will lead a competition, and when he actually sees the points, like there's 2 events left, then he'll just fail both of the last events. Just that he can't win novice. Because if
okay,
he
that's
wins,
called sandbagging.
I know. But
Yeah, that's not cool in any sport. I don't care what sport you're in. If you're doing
So
that,
he
you're
just doesn't want to lose the novice rank
yeah.
because
He
he
didn't
just
wanna
likes
do that.
knowing he can win.
yes, basically. But um, then the head of the African Strongman Union, Gerard van Staden, who's also a pro strongman,
Hmm.
he had a little talk with him, and that's how the story goes. He had a little talk with him, and then at Africa's Strongest Man, no, at SA Strongest Man, he competed in amateur thing, but no, he competed in novice at SA's and amateur at Africa's Strongest Man, and he actually won the amateur division. So most of the guys that said, "Listen, uh, we see you. We always knew what you were trying to do. Now we know how strong you are. Next year we see you in the pro division." So now he's not a baby anymore.
Yeah.
So he needed the push to actually go for it. And it's like, all right, you got novice, now you got amateur, or now we just need to push you into pro. So, do you see yourself going up another weight class, or do you think 90 kilograms is where you're going to make your namesake?
I believe 90 kilograms will be my namesake for now. I don't want to follow in Rob Kenny's footsteps from under 90 to 105 to open.
Yeah, I'm
So,
guessing you're not super tall.
Or
I'm
what is your
actually
height?
5'6".
Yeah.
So,
I'm 6'2", so
So for me to gain that much weight, it's gonna be the death of me, basically.
look like Eddie Hall,
uh,
where you could look at him straight forward and you couldn't see his ears.
Yes.
yeah. I wanted to continue a question Justin asked earlier that you didn't finish the answer to because I interrupted you. I would like to say that Atlas stones, I like seeing those in amateur competitions because you can train other stuff and get stronger at Atlas stone up to a certain point. And you can kind of overpower Atlas stones pretty easily if they're in the novice class kind of weights. So those are fun to watch. But I think that like I've trained with Atlas stones maybe a total of 20 reps before my competition, and I only trained with a 150 2 different times, and then I had bicep tendonitis for like 2 months. I couldn't train Atlas stones because anytime I tried to bring my arms together, it just hurt. So I didn't train Atlas stones at all for my competition. I tossed the 150 maybe 2 or 3 times, got a 180 up to a platform a couple times, did 10 reps with 150, and then did it at 220. And like, I don't think most people in my weight class could have done the 220 even for 1 rep, even though they got a ton of reps with the 150. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think are your weakest lifts,
Weakest
or
lifts.
least
Proportional
favorite
to
and
strength.
proportional to the rest of your lifts? Where do you think you tend to lose points against your competition?
Definitely moving events. Well, my moving events actually started to grow a lot in the last 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I would say basically my farmer's carry. I don't know. I don't have the speed, so I lose a lot of grip. So I have to
Yeah,
work
because
on.
that your grip will wear out if you're not fast.
Yeah, I can't outrun my grip. That's something I've been struggling to do. Other than that, yoke carry was always a bit of hassle for me as well.
I
But
noticed that the lighter, shorter men can struggle with weight with the yoke really, really bad.
especially
My
for me,
opinion,
I'm basically on the lowest setting, almost on the lowest setting of the height.
Yeah, for a standard yoke.
This is for a super yoke, so it's actually kind of bad. But Yeah, I've got my weight up to 330 kilogram on the yoke, so which moves quite slowly, but
Heavy
sounds
yokes
like
move slowly. Like you want them to move fast, and they just
Oh.
don't.
Well, if you think about it, so that's 727 pounds, and the yoke at World's Ultimate Strongman last year was 750
Oh.
for the Open.
For the first one, I
Yeah,
thought they
Yeah,
had
for
the
the
multiple
first.
yokes. It was like a little over 750, and then like 800 and something, and then like over 1,000 for the last one. It was like one of the heaviest yokes ever done. I think 1,300 actually for the super yoke for the very last one.
hmm
And
I
Rob
think
Carty is
for-
the only one who finished it.
I think for last year, before World's Strongest Man, a lot of the pro strongmen actually said that Arnold Africa was the heaviest show they've ever done. Because
Really?
even they also had a yoke medley, which was a 450 kilogram and a 500 kilogram,
Ooh.
both for 10 meters.
Yeah, that's
They
long for that much weight.
they had to do a farmer's carry, which was 180 kilograms per hand.
396. That's
396.
pretty average for the pro strongman. It's a little higher than average. I think they're around like 375. I think is kind of the average strongman farmer's carry for the
Around
pro.
170 kilograms. So they hit it up a notch, and yeah, it was amazing. And Novikov actually won that Arnold's with the Atlas Stone for reps.
How heavy was the Atlas stone?
I think it was a 200 kilogram stone that he did 3 or 4 reps, which was a Africa record as well.
So who all
So-
competes in Africa? Like, what are the main countries that go to the African competitions?
The main countries that compete in Africa is Zambia, and there's some guys from Botswana that I've seen, and then mostly South Africans.
Botswana is huge for strongman. They loved when World's Strongest Man was there, and they were huge. Even the strongman competitors loved when it was in Botswana. They said
There's
that
one
was
guy
one of the best ones.
There's one guy that stays in Namibia as well. Haven't seen him quite a while, but
So how is the growth in
that's-
Africa for strongman in general that you've noticed?
The growth is slow compared to other sports, but we try to win over as many people as we can, and yeah, in let's say a normal little local competition, we try to get the crowd involved as well, so that they can see that what we are doing is not just pretend weights.
Mhm.
So
I
get
think the
them more
crowd
involved.
involvement is really awesome. I love doing that.
It's amazing, and the passion that they start to share with you while you compete, actually, or just while you do a demo for them. We have quite a few strongman demos that we do in certain areas. So we draw the crowd in, let them feel the equipment, so that they can feel this is actually the weight that we say it is, and then we show them how to do it. We do it ourselves, and just basically entertain the crowd.
Well, and I think one of my favorite things about strongman, and the best way to get people into it, is that it's just fun to do.
It is.
You just feel strong when you lift strongman stuff and get to rep it. Like it just feels like you're strong.
And it is. But yeah, we also do quite a few charity events as well for cancer. It's a cancer association of South Africa. So yeah, the last 6 months we've done 3 or 4 charity events for them, and every time we've done it, the crowd just got bigger, and more athletes competed in it. So
I noticed the crowds that like the crowds at amateur strongman competition are just families and friends of the athletes, but they're really passionate. And they like cheering.
depends on where the competition is held.
Mhm.
Like if it's at the mall in a parking lot, you draw so much attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's a spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because they see, wow, there's people pulling a truck. Let's go watch.
Yep.
Well, and then in America, if you serve beer, you'll get a bunch of people there just for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm,
I think
I'm thinking.
another thing about Strongman is that you can set it up so that people don't have to move a whole lot, and I think that's really good. Because if the crowd doesn't have to move, they're kind of happier.
Now what we do is basically if we put an event on this spot, like we do deadlifts here, we'll do the log press there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And across that same area, we'll do the truck pull or farmer's carry or yoke carry or something like that. So we try to center everything in the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
So precisely like you said, like so that the crowd doesn't move around to specific areas. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if the crowd is basically around us the whole time and we are the center of attention, then it's better for the crowd and you draw more people in and the crowd doesn't split up into small factions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, how do you feel like the crowd affects you? Like when they get really into it.
Adrenaline actually spikes a lot, but there are some events that you just zone out and it's you and the weight. You don't see anything around you. You don't hear anything around you. And
Honestly, I think a bit of that is when you brace, like some of that pressure just stays in your head and just makes it hard to hear stuff.
yeah, because when you breathe and you brace for a heavy lift, let's say for a deadlift, everything around you basically slows down,
Mm-hmm.
and your focus basically shifts into this little ball right in front of you. So you don't see anything around you except if you look up, you see the official in front of you. But if it's something like a farmer's carry or a yoke carry or truck pull, the more the crowd starts to shout and scream and cheer and everything, the harder you start to push and the more adrenaline you start to build up, easier it gets. And yeah, it's an amazing feeling to have the crowd there at every event or competition. I love it. It's without them we can't do the competitions.
I got to admit, I was never a big fan of crowds in general, but the crowd definitely helped me at my competition, and I definitely felt the energy of the crowd. It's nice.
That is nice. I love it. But yeah, also people that also with well, you get the athletes that work with crappy equipment as well. So
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
who doesn't have proper equipment yet. Um, in cases like that, other people will see that. Like for instance, I will give my figure eight straps to someone that doesn't have figure eight straps during a deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is worn out and everything. So I'm actually getting at the end of the month again, or getting new ones at the end.
Yeah.
But I've lended it out so much that it's actually worn out,
Mm-hmm.
but still it holds its strength. That's why I wanted to come into like equipment-wise. I started working with a guy who runs a local um, powerlifting and strongman equipment brand called Savage Support,
Mm-hmm.
and he sponsors people like well the best powerlifter that comes out of South Africa as well, Nicolas de Pre. He has a 1,035 kilogram total powerlifting. 1,035 is 2,281.
Yeah, that's big.
And recently he basically squatted the 425 kilogram squat. What's that? 425, 936 pound squat. And he did that with ease. He's actually going to compete at the Pro Raw now in a few weeks. And one of the most amazing people, yeah, he's one of the strongest people in South Africa in powerlifting. And he's one of the most humble people that you will ever meet. And this Savage Support sponsors him as well, and sponsors another powerlifting athlete, Tanal van Gorsveld as well. So also, she's an exceptional athlete in powerlifting. And yeah, so I started to communicate a bit with him to help him in areas where struggling to sell some of his product and so on. So I'll see if I can help him with that. And yeah, I'm getting my equipment from him as well. So
I think it's important to maintain those small business relationships in Strongman because small businesses are what drive the growth of niche sports like Strongman, and they're going to be the ones taking a lot of the sponsorships because they care more about the sport.
yes.
And I think that supporting the localist you can do affordably. You
Yep.
should. Like I don't really like to support Rogue or SBD. They have plenty of people already. I'd rather go to like Elite FTS
Or buy shirts
starting
from local
Strongman.
strongman gyms.
Well, I have disc golf shirts. When you play a disc golf tournament, they'll give you a shirt just for playing. I have 20 or 30 disc golf shirts and like 20 or 30 band shirts. I don't need more t-shirts. My wife yells at me for getting more t-shirts.
Same with us. Same with us.
Yeah,
My cupboard is basically a stack of strongman shirts, and I think I have 4 or 5 normal shirts.
yeah, I have band t-shirts, strongman shirts now, and disc golf shirts. It's just like, but that's the thing. Like, I always want to buy the shirts because I like supporting those small local businesses. But now it's getting a little out of hand because everybody has shirts, and I want them all.
Yeah,
I have
that's
to say that actually I have to say that Savage Support, their equipment it's local, but the quality is basically international level. It's
That's awesome.
amazing. So yeah,
Then yeah,
someone to support, and
I bought my powerlifting belt my lifting belt from a local business that's actually based out of North Carolina. That was recommended to me from a friend called Best Belts, and they are amazing. Custom belt, pre broken in. It's amazing color. I love local businesses if I can, and the price was about the same as anywhere else I've looked for the same quality of belt. I was so happy.
So we talked about Arnold Australia, but what else is coming up for you in the next couple of months? I know you're focused on, you said the 90 kilogram world record, or was it 90 kilogram African record? Oh, you want the 80 kilogram world record, 90 kilogram African record, and you're looking at the 80 kilogram log press African?
yes.
And what else? Like, what do you kind of see? What are you targeting for like the next year? Like, where do you see competitions and stuff?
Competitions, I have to defend my SA title, which is in the beginning of August. And yeah, if I get an invite to Worlds this year, then I hope I can go. Last year I got an invite to go to Worlds official Strongman Games for the under 80 kilogram division, and I couldn't go because of financial reasons. So I struggled to get sponsors to help out, and so I couldn't go for that. And just after having to decline my invitation, I got an invite to the Strongman Champions League in India, which I also had to decline.
Cool. Oh, that's
so yeah, there's a few international invites and couldn't go. So hopefully this year I will be able to go. I already got in contact with people that actually. Well,
flights
one
are
of my
cheap
friends
right now.
Flights are cheaper, and it's going to be a lot cheaper for me. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends actually worked for the Airways, and
Nice.
yeah, so he can organize quite a cheap ticket for me. So that brings the ticket price already off by about 20,000.
Well, and if you have time, the further ahead you buy your plane ticket, the cheaper it's going to be. So
you said
like a lot of. Go ahead.
You said you were invited to last year's World and you had to turn it down. But this year's World, they haven't sent out the invites for your weight class yet, or?
Yeah, for this year's Worlds they haven't yet. I actually got my invite last year after I won essays, which was in August. So hopefully around the same time we will get our invites again this year.
So they only sent them out like what 4 or 5 weeks before competition then?
Worlds was last year in the end of November or beginning of November.
So about 2 months.
About 2 months.
And
but I think you tend to know if you qualified for Worlds strongest
Yes.
man because you won a certain competition, right?
And for me, that's basically SA Strongest Man or Arnold's.
Mhm.
Okay. If you win either one of those, you get your invite to Worlds, and so you know you'll be going.
I'm not sure about the Arnold's one because I know that if I win Arnold's, then I get an automatic invite for next year, Arnold's Ohio, get in the amateur division there. But I know if I win SAs this year, then I'll get the invite again for Worlds. So,
Okay, that's cool.
Uh,
I know my coach got an invite to the national championships for the other Strongman Corporation and wasn't able to go. And the invite stayed active. He didn't even have to qualify
Oh, wow.
because, but I think he won a decent sized contest. So, but yeah, so he's gonna go this year. So that's gonna be interesting.
It's going to be awesome.
hmm But yeah, like I said, he just won our state's strongest man, but he won it like he blew everybody out of the water. But he knew that going in because he saw the competitor list and he's like, "Oh, I'm stronger than all those guys."
Well, but that's how it pretty much is anywhere in the U.S. Every state
Yeah.
has their guy that is near professional
than
level, if
everyone
not
else.
professional, and everyone else is deep amateur. And then he just shows up and just
But yeah, my coach, he did like a over 500-pound Atlas stone too recently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's pretty strong. I'm pretty excited to be coached by him.
Like, I'm pretty sure Colorado's strongest man. It's well decided.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you'll see that Brian Shaw doesn't ever compete in America's
No.
Strongest Man, which is dumb. He should be, especially considering how big Europe's Strongest Man, Britain's Strongest Man, all the other countries' Strongest Man actually care, except for America's Strongest Man, because it's not Giants Live.
Well, yeah, there's so many competitions of strongman. Now you have to pick and choose. Back to the thing about getting beat up. But
Well, yeah, but he could destroy America's Strongest Man, but he doesn't do it because there's no reason for him to.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, we could. Yeah.
We could have a really good America's Strongest Man
I was
if
thinking
the
to the
pros
list.
in America agreed to go.
Yeah. But
But
really
it's the
awesome.
same with Gerrit van Staden from South Africa. He's a pro strongman, but he doesn't compete in South Africa. Always
Oh, yeah.
competes overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Iron Bibby is actually from Canada.
That's where
And
he's
he
born.
stays, and he stays in Africa.
Hmm. But I also saw Iron Bibby competing in a Strongman Champions League when he was like 100 pounds lighter, and he did a back handspring. I was like, "What? Is
Oh,
that
yeah, I
the
think I
same
saw that, yeah.
Iron Bibby?"
I saw that too.
I was like, "That is the same Iron Bibby. He just put on like 100 pounds."
So,
But
something that
he's
Eddie.
gonna break that log record this year. I guarantee that.
So I guess
I
before
hope
we
he
wrap
does.
up.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I guess before we wrap up, so one thing that Eddie said his plan was his goal was to win World's Strongest Man. What is your end goal? Like, what is if you accomplish that, you can be like, I did it. Where do you see that in your competitions or end objective?
Managing to be top 10 at Worlds. If I can do that, then I'll set a bigger goal. But for now, competing in Worlds and ending in top 10.
Top 10 in Worlds, whatever weight class, is fucking impressive.
Well, I watched the official Strongman games last year and thought to myself, some of those guys are, yes, the top 5 in the under 80 kilogram division. They are crazy strong.
Mm,
But everybody from 7th upwards, they have so many weaknesses, and there's some things that I don't know. Some of them, I believe I can beat, and I get the 15 to 24, I think there was.
mhm.
You just start to wonder, what are you doing there?
I want to ask you about another under 80 kilo strongman competitor I know of. Dan the Flash Ashcroft. He's the only under 80 kilo strongman that I know of.
Currently holding the world axle race record.
Yeah, for his weight class. Have you competed against him before?
Not yet. I would love
Okay.
to, actually. I know that
Yeah,
he
because I
will
know
kick my
he's crazy strong for his weight class.
will kick my ass, but To be able to compete against someone from his caliber, I would love that.
Who else do you look up for the under 80 kilo strongman guys?
Um,
Because I don't know him that well.
I don't know him that well. I've seen his posts and I've seen him compete at on live streams and so on. So I follow them quite extensively, but yeah, I'm not sure. I look up to a lot of guys. There's quite a lot of guys that I believe are crazy strong who can actually push me if I compete against them, and will bring out the best of me. That's my mosquito. That's my end goal. If I can compete against the best, then I can measure myself against the best.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what I want to do. But looking up to them, basically everybody in the top 5, they are just crazy strong and they motivate me and they inspire me so much.
All right, I think that's
That's a good place to
wrap. Yeah. All right, thank you
thanks
all
for
tuning
joining
in
us this week.
Yeah, thank you,
You're welcome.
GingerBeast. We appreciated all of your very, very interesting insights and really
Thanks for having me.
I really enjoy your perspective, and I enjoy your commenting on our perspectives too. It's really
Yep.
been a very good, interesting podcast. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All
It's
right,
great having you.
thank you everybody for tuning in. Yeah,
Cheers.
that's a wrap.
Yep.